Mommy, I already told you, I hate mathematics.
Then, explain what just happened.
I counted everything.
Without complaining?
Because this one felt real.
Real enough to make you forget you hated it.
Maybe.
Maybe stopped me. Because if one small change could make a child forget that he hated maths, even for a moment, then perhaps the real problem was not the child at all. And that was when I began to ask myself, what had we been missing? The child who had just pushed away his workbook and said, "I hate maths," was suddenly counting biscuits, naira notes, and ripe plantains with complete concentration. No complaining, no fear, no asking when the work would end. Within days, he was measuring ingredients, comparing prices, dividing snacks, and beginning to understand calculations that had once frustrated him. If mathematics has become a daily struggle in your home, stay with me, because I did not solve this problem by forcing my child to study harder. I solved it by listening carefully to one sentence he almost said in passing: "The numbers are not real." It began on an ordinary afternoon at our dining table. Ako's mathematics workbook was open in front of him, but he had barely touched the questions. He turned his pencil between his fingers, checked the clock, and returned to the same page with the tired expression I had seen many times before. If you have ever tried to help a child with mathematics homework, you may know exactly how it begins. You explain one question, the child nods, you move to the next question, and suddenly it feels as if everything you just explained has disappeared. You explain it again, the child becomes restless. You become tired, and before long, the problem is no longer only the mathematics. The whole atmosphere in the house has changed. That afternoon, Ako stared at the page for a few more seconds, then pushed the workbook away. "Mommy, I'm not doing this again." I looked at him. "Doing what again?" He answered immediately, "Maths." Then he said the three words I never wanted to hear from him. "I hate maths." What? I stared at him. I had heard those words from many people before, children, teenagers, and even adults laughing about how mathematics had frightened them in school. But hearing them from my own child landed differently. I started thinking, not only about that afternoon's homework, but about what those words could become if they were repeated for years. A child begins by saying, "This question is difficult." Then it becomes, "I cannot do maths." And if that belief continues, it can slowly become, "Maths is not for me." That was the danger I saw immediately. Ako was still within those important years between 5 and 13, when children are quietly building the beliefs they may carry into adulthood. At that age, they are learning far more than school subjects. They are learning what to believe about themselves. They are deciding whether they are capable, whether mistakes mean failure, whether hard things can be understood, and whether learning should feel frightening or exciting. I think of those years like writing on a fresh page. Whatever is written repeatedly begins to stay. Confidence can stay, curiosity can stay, discipline can stay, but fear can stay too. I did not want fear of mathematics written deeply into my child before he had even had the chance to discover what numbers could do. I wanted him to become spiritually grounded, emotionally secure, respectful, responsible, and academically sound. And I knew that those qualities would not simply appear when he became older. They had to be planted now, in the small moments, in the way we responded to difficulty, in the way we handled frustration, and in the kind of experiences we created around learning. If this is your first time here, welcome to African Roots American Mother. I'm Bisola, speaking from the warmth of the motherland, and here we explore practical ways to raise children who are culturally and spiritually grounded, emotionally strong, and confident in who they are. If that is the kind of home you are intentionally building, subscribe and become part of this village, because the ideas we share here are meant to leave the screen and enter real family life. I turned back to Ako. My first instinct was to tell him that mathematics was important and that he simply had to finish the work. But I stopped myself. I knew that forcing him to complete the page might solve the homework problem for that day, but it would not solve the bigger problem growing underneath it. So instead of arguing, I listened. Ako began explaining what frustrated him. He said the questions kept repeating themselves. He said the numbers just sat on the page. They did not become anything. They did not connect to anything he cared about. Then he said something so simple that I nearly missed its importance. The numbers are not real. I turned toward him fully. What did you say? He pointed at the workbook. They are just numbers on paper. They don't do anything. They are not real. That sentence changed the direction of the entire afternoon. He was not saying he could not count. He was not saying he could never understand mathematics. He was telling me that the numbers had no meaning to him. There was nothing he could touch, nothing he could see happening, no reason to care whether the answer was 5, 7, or 12. The page was asking him to solve problems that did not feel like problems from his own life. And suddenly I understood that more explanations would not be enough. If the numbers felt lifeless, I had to make them alive. If they felt far away, I had to bring them into the room. If mathematics looked like something trapped inside a workbook, I had to show him that it was already hiding in the ordinary things he touched every day. So I asked him one question. If those numbers are not real, then what is real? For the first time that afternoon, he sat up properly. He thought for only a moment before answering. Money is real. Biscuits were real, his football cards were real, his toys were real. The snacks he counted before sharing with his sister were very real. In fact, like many children, he could suddenly become extremely accurate with numbers whenever he suspected someone else had received one extra biscuit. And as he kept talking, something became clear. He did not hate counting, he did not hate comparing, he did not hate working out how much he had or how much remained. He only hated the version of mathematics that felt disconnected from everything he understood. I looked toward the kitchen cabinet. Inside it was a biscuit tin we had bought from the shopping mall. I looked toward my handbag, then toward a bunch of ripe plantains on the kitchen counter. And in that moment, I decided that I was no longer going to argue with the sentence, "The numbers are not real." I was going to prove to him that they were. I stood up, opened the cabinet, and reached for the biscuit tin. Ako watched me without saying a word. He did not know it yet, but the workbook had just stopped being the center of the lesson. And what I placed on that table next became the beginning of an experiment that would change the way mathematics entered our home. I placed the biscuit tin on the dining table, brought several naira notes out of my purse, and added the bunch of ripe plantains from the kitchen counter. Ako watched every movement, trying to understand what any of it had to do with the workbook he had just pushed away. I moved the book aside, pushed the objects toward him, and said, "Count them." He reached for the biscuit tin first. Of course he did. He counted every biscuit carefully, then the naira notes, then the plantains. No complaining, no fear, no asking how many questions remained. The child, who had looked exhausted only minutes earlier, was suddenly sitting upright, completely focused. And as I watched him, I had one question in my mind. Where had this concentration been hiding? I removed 2 biscuits and asked how many remained. He answered, I divided the plantains into 2 groups and asked which group had more. He answered again. Then I added another naira note and asked him to calculate the new amount. He paused, counted carefully, and gave me the total. He was doing subtraction, comparison, and addition, but he was not resisting any of it because nobody had announced, "Now we are doing mathematics." The numbers had stopped floating alone. They were standing on something he could see, something he could touch, something that mattered to him. That was the first moment I understood that the problem might not be his ability. The problem might be the distance between the numbers and his life. The biscuit tin closed that distance. The money closed it. Even the plantains closed it. But then another question entered my mind. Would this work only because biscuits and money were involved? Or had I found a door I could keep opening? I decided to test it. Not with another long lesson, not with more worksheets, with ordinary life. From that afternoon, everything inside our home began looking like mathematics to me. The kitchen was the first place I noticed it. The next time I measured rice, I called Ako over and asked him to help me count the cups. When I poured water, we compared which container held more and which held less. When we prepared a simple recipe, I asked what would happen if we needed twice the amount. He did not always know the answer immediately, but now he wanted to find out because the result was sitting in front of him. If we measured wrongly, the food itself would expose us. There is something very honest about kitchen mathematics. A workbook may quietly accept a wrong answer until the teacher marks it, but too much water in a mixture will announce the mistake to the entire family. Soon, fruit became fractions. I cut an orange into 2 equal parts and asked what each part represented. Then I divided another into 4. Ako watched closely, not because she was deeply committed to fractions, but because she wanted to be certain nobody's portion was bigger than hers. Children who say mathematics is difficult often become excellent inspectors when food must be shared equally. One extra slice can produce evidence, witnesses, and a full courtroom argument. That moment made all of us laugh, but it also proved something important. The children already understood fairness, quantity, and division. They simply did not always know that the thinking they were using had a mathematical name. Sometimes, a child is not meeting mathematics for the first time. The child is only meeting the name of something they have already been doing. That thought became another clue. So I stopped trying to create mathematics from nothing. I began helping them recognize the mathematics already around them. We paired socks while folding laundry. We arranged shoes from smallest to largest. We counted the plates needed for dinner and worked out how many were missing. We used building blocks to make patterns. We counted football scores. We compared the prices of 2 small items before buying one. We calculated how many minutes remained before bedtime. And let me tell you, a child who appears confused by numbers can suddenly understand time perfectly when screen time is involved. If you say 10 minutes have passed, the child may demand an independent investigation. No, mommy, it was only 8 minutes and 20 seconds. That was when I realized mathematics had never truly been absent from our house. It had been everywhere, but we had treated it as though it belonged only inside a school book. Each small activity brought another change. Ako began asking questions without being prompted. If 12 biscuits were shared among 4 people, how many would each person receive? If we left home at 7:30 and the journey took 30 minutes, what time would we arrive? If one item cost more than another, how much more? He still made mistakes. Sometimes he counted twice, sometimes he became frustrated, but he was no longer closing his mind before the question had even begun. And that mattered more to me than perfect answers. I did not need my 9-year-old to become a mathematics genius overnight. I needed him to stop believing that mathematics had rejected him. I wanted the voice growing inside him to say, I may not understand this yet, but I can work it out. Those years between 5 and 13 are when that voice is still being formed. A child can carry one careless sentence for years. But a child can also carry one powerful experience: the day something difficult finally made sense. That was the experience I was trying to create. So, every time he struggled, I began asking myself 3 questions. Can he see it? Can he touch it? Can I connect it to something he already understands? If the lesson involved subtraction, we removed real objects. If it involved multiplication, we made equal groups. If it involved division, we shared something. If it involved measurement, we went into the kitchen. The home became the bridge between the workbook and his mind. School still mattered. The workbook still mattered. Discipline still mattered. I was not replacing formal learning. I was giving it somewhere to land. And then, something happened that surprised me. One evening, after we had spent several days finding mathematics in ordinary things, Ako brought the workbook to me himself. He opened it to a question he had previously avoided and said, "Mommy, can we use something to show this one?" That sentence may sound small, but to me, it was evidence that fear was beginning to lose its grip. He had not said, "I cannot do it." He had asked for a bridge. We used bottle tops to form equal groups. He counted them, rearranged them, and finally wrote the answer in the workbook. Then he looked at the page and smiled. Not a dramatic smile, just the quiet smile of a child who had discovered that a problem could be opened rather than feared. For a moment, I thought I had found the complete answer. Make mathematics practical, make it visible, let the child touch it. But deep inside me, I knew something was still missing. These activities were helping him understand individual questions, but I wanted to give him something stronger than a collection of household tricks. I wanted an experience he would remember, a story that could show him that numbers were not only useful for biscuits, recipes, and screen time. Numbers had built businesses, numbers had supported families, numbers had sent children to school. But where would I find a story like that? One close enough for him to feel that it belonged to him. I did not have the answer yet. Then, that weekend, my mother came to visit. She arrived while the children and I were sitting around the table with bottle tops, bowls, and a mathematics workbook. She watched quietly for a while, then picked up one of the counters and smiled. "Do you know why I have never hated mathematics?" she asked. The children looked up. I looked up too. None of us knew that her answer would take us back to a trader from another generation, a woman whose simple calculations had paid a child's school fees and quietly changed the direction of our family. But that story had not yet begun. My mother's question stayed in the room for a moment. "Do you know why I have never hated mathematics?" Ako stopped moving the bottle tops. Habo leaned closer. Even I waited because although I knew pieces of my mother's story, I had never heard her connect it to mathematics before. She looked at the little counters spread across our table, smiled and said, "Because when I was your age, numbers were never only numbers." Then she picked up one bottle top and placed it in Ako's palm. Every number represented something: food, money, goods, school fees, tomorrow. That one word, tomorrow, caught my attention. She did not explain the entire story that day, not yet. She only told us that her own mother, the children's great-grandmother, had been a trader, and that the simple mathematics she used in the market helped her save enough money to send a child to school. Ako looked at the bottle top differently after that. It was still only a bottle top, but now it was standing in for something larger: value, work, choice, a future. And that was the moment the missing piece finally came together for me. The biscuits had made mathematics visible. The kitchen had made it practical, but the story gave it meaning. I did not only need counters, I needed a world the children could enter, a market they could build, goods they could price, calories they could count, choices they could make, a game that would allow them to touch mathematics, use it, and remember why it mattered. That evening, after the children had gone to bed, I sat down with sheets of paper, pencils, and pieces of cardboard. I began sketching the objects I remembered from old markets and family stories. Cowries, kola nuts, beads, calabashes, baskets of pepper, smoked fish, yams, plantains, small bundles of cloth. Then I added market stalls, price cards, shopping lists, and simple challenge cards. Then I printed the drawings, cut them out, and glued each one onto cardboard so the children could hold them without tearing the paper. It was not perfect. Some of the cowries leaned to one side, and one yam looked more like a sleeping animal than anything anyone should buy in a market. But by the time I finished, our dining table no longer looked like a table. It looked like the beginning of a tiny African market. The next morning, I arranged everything before calling the children. Cowrie tokens went into one small bowl. The kola nuts, beads, yams, and baskets went into separate groups. I placed price cards beside them. 1 cowrie, 2 cowries, 5 cowries. Then I added 3 simple instruction cards. Buy, sell, count your change. When Ako entered the room, he stopped. "What is this?" he asked. I smiled. "Your market." That was all I needed to say. Within minutes, he had claimed the largest cardboard store. Habo gathered the cowries and announced that she was the richest customer in the village, even though she had counted her money incorrectly. Ako corrected her immediately. "You are not rich, you have only 8. She counted again, discovered that he was right, and quietly borrowed 2 more from Grandma. Just like that, mathematics had entered the room without anyone asking the children to open a workbook. But this time, I was watching more carefully. When Habo bought 2 kola nuts at 2 cowries each, Ako had to work out the total. When she paid with 5 cowries, he had to calculate her change. When Ako decided to sell 3 baskets of pepper, he had to count his stock and keep a record of what remained. They were adding, subtracting, comparing, grouping, and making decisions. And because the answers affected the game, they wanted to get them right. That was the secret I had been searching for. Children become more willing to solve a problem when the answer changes what happens next. If Ako calculated incorrectly, his market lost money. If Habo counted badly, she could not buy what she wanted. The mathematics was no longer sitting quietly on a page, it was moving the story forward. To keep the game from becoming repetitive, I added challenge cards. One said, "You have 10 cowries. Buy 2 different items and calculate what remains." Another asked, 3 customers want 1 kola nut each. How many kola nuts must you prepare? Another asked, "Your basket costs 4 cowries, but your customer has only 3. What can the customer do?" Some cards were simple. Others made them stop and think. A few led to arguments. One challenge asked them to divide 12 calories equally, and both children suddenly became deeply concerned about honesty. Nobody wanted 1 calorie to disappear mysteriously under the table. But those little disagreements became part of the lesson too. They had to explain their answers. They had to listen. They had to recount. They had to correct themselves without feeling ashamed. And something else began happening. Ako started creating his own questions. What if the customer buys 4? What if the price changes? What if I sell everything? That was the moment I knew the game was doing more than helping him calculate. It was making him curious. He was no longer waiting for mathematics to happen to him. He was using mathematics to test possibilities. That is what I wanted from the beginning. Not a child who memorized every answer without understanding. A child who could look at a problem and think, "Let me see what happens if I try." If you can already picture your own children turning the dining table into a little market, write, "This is my kind of learning," in the comments. I would genuinely love to know how many homes are ready to make mathematics feel more alive. And because I know not every parent has the time to sit down and draw cowries, kola nuts, market stalls, and challenge cards from the beginning, I have prepared the full printable version of this activity for you. It includes cut-out cowries, African market goods, price cards, shopping lists, parent prompts, and step-by-step instructions for playing at different age levels. You can print the pieces, cut them out, stick them onto cardboard if you want them to last longer, and begin with whatever your child already understands. For younger children, start with counting, matching, and simple buying. For older children, add change, profit, multiplication, division, and simple budgeting. The download is linked directly below this video and it is completely free. But something happened after we had played the games several times. Ako began opening his workbook differently. He still did not love every question, he still had moments of frustration, but now, when a problem looked confusing, he would sometimes ask, "Can I make a market for this one?" That question told me the bridge was working. He was learning that an abstract problem could be turned into something visible. And over time, his confidence began to change. He answered more questions. He raised his hand more often in class. Then one afternoon, he returned home with a mathematics score that made him stand a little taller as he handed the paper to me. I laughed. He was not yet the best mathematics student in the world, and I did not need him to be. But the child who had once said, "I hate maths," was now beginning to believe, "I can understand this." That was the real victory. Still, the market game carried one question I had not yet fully answered. Why did those cowries, kola nuts, and old trading stories feel so powerful? Why did my mother speak about mathematics as though it had changed the direction of her entire life? The answer belonged to a woman my children had never met, their great-grandmother, and to the small calculations she made in a market many years before any of us were born. That is the story I will tell in part 2. You will discover how one African trader used counting, profit, patience, and discipline to send her daughter to school, and how that family story changed the way my children understood not only mathematics, but work, honesty, and inheritance. So download the printable below and try the first market game in your own home. Then subscribe and turn on your notifications because part 2 will take us beyond playing market and into the real family history that inspired it. For now, remember this. When a child says, "I hate maths," do not only hear resistance. Listen for the missing connection. Sometimes the child does not need another lecture. Sometimes the child needs something to touch, something to imagine, and a reason to care about the answer. And sometimes, one ordinary dining table can become the classroom that changes everything.